Well, what's going on here? Oh, there we go.
This is the Hoff Time Report with Idaho Freedom Foundation President Wayne Hoffman, one of Idaho's most respected, influential public policy voices.
Hi there, everybody. Welcome back to the program. I'm in the RV again, traveling. I would love to have got the iPad out so you can get a little better video imagery. The technology sometimes just doesn't work for me so well. So stick with me, and maybe it'll work, maybe it won't work. I don't know. Yeah, let me know in the chat if you can hear me okay. That would be appreciated because sometimes I get talking and I'm doing a whole broadcast, and then somebody says, "Can't hear you, can't hear you." And if that's the case, then I guess you'll let me know. Okay, thank you, Stephen. I appreciate that. Nice thumbs up. Nice yellow, culturally appropriated from The Simpsons thumbs up. So anyway, I'll just go ahead and get started, and hopefully, as people join us, we'll not find that I have to repeat myself very often. But 5 by 5, yes, sir. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Lisa. I'm going to also see if I can bring the comments up a little closer so that I can actually see if anyone has any questions or anything as we go. So last week I wrote an article that was talking about the that Idaho has no policy restricting Medicaid patients in Idaho from getting what they now call transgender therapeutics or surgeries. So that would be outright cutting things off or changing the design of your genitalia, removing breasts. There's just so many different things, and of course, hormone replacement, hormone suppressants, or puberty blockers, I should say, as they call them. And in that article, I noted that there are 8 states that had policies in place that say that you can't use Medicaid for that purpose. And then I also noted that Idaho is one of those states that just didn't specify anything. Several the remaining states expressly say that if you show up and you identify as being a different gender, then they'll pay for your surgery. And I mentioned in there that, well, I won't talk about what I mentioned. You either read it or you didn't read it. It's fine. But I started talking a little bit about my own history with some of this stuff, which I don't like talking about, quite honestly. But as I watched this thing manifest with this the transgender agenda, um, I thought that I had a story to tell, and I want to tell it. Not that I'm very comfortable about telling it, but I think it's one of those that maybe is illustrative of why this is such a dangerous thing. I'm a 50-year-old man, and I can tell you that when I was a youngster, the gender stuff was very confusing to me. I probably started shaving my legs when I was 10 years old before I was shaving my face. Didn't have a beard, but I had plenty of leg hair, and I wanted to emulate more of what the girls looked like because I really admired them, admired what they were doing, admired their interactions, admired what they were wearing, and and so they didn't call that being transgender back then. Back then, you were called a tomboy or a tomgirl. And I grew up in the South, and there were a lot of tomboys, but there were very few tomgirls, I guess. But tomboys wore dresses sometimes. Sometimes they wore, jeans or shorts or whatever. But they were the ones that hung out with the boys and, played with cars and did all that other stuff. And I hung out with the girls and did the girl stuff. I hated hunting. I hated auto mechanic stuff, and I learned to do that stuff eventually. But my gosh, I was so infatuated with the idea of dressing up and looking like them, and even up till the point where I was a senior in high school. The girls, they call, and everybody called me a girl, and it was all in jest. But there was nothing mean spirited about it. It was just, you're just, hey, I know Tunnel Lord. I know. By the way, I can imagine the headlines too, which is fine, whatever. But this is really important for people to understand because well, I'm backtracking. I'm gonna just get through this. But yeah, I mean, I've seen my there are girls I'd wear their clothes and they'd paint my nails and we'd wear makeup and do all that kind of stuff, and that was all fun. And as a senior in high school, I distinctly remember. I was thinking, man, maybe I'll get to wear a nice, pretty dress to prom and see how that goes, because that was the most important thing to me. It so happens that on prom night was the same night as the Arkansas, I think it was the primary gubernatorial debate. It probably was. And so I was a young, budding reporter and more interested in public policy and politics. So cross-dressing at the senior prom was less important to me than covering the gubernatorial debate, and that was that. And over time, I started figuring out what this was all about. There was nothing. People ask me, what's it in your childhood that made you like that? And I don't know. People just have a lot of difficult time processing things, and sometimes the thing that they're having trouble processing is gender related. Back then, if you were a boy wearing dresses, you were either a transvestite or a cross-dresser. And somewhere along the way, they decided to call it transsexual. And then they called it transgender. So the language has changed to accommodate more of this leftist attitude. It's all about marketing, right? And then of course they called it sex change surgeries for the folks who went and got sex changes. But that's probably not PC enough or attractive enough. So then they started calling it gender reassignment surgery. Then they started calling it gender confirmation surgery. So all along, people are being convinced that this is just somehow just a normal thing, that people are born in the wrong bodies, and it's all about what you're wearing. I got to tell you, I wore a lot of dresses and skirts and all kinds of things, and didn't turn me into a girl. And it doesn't make you a girl; it just makes you emulate something that you admire. In my case, I was admiring girls when I was a young kid, and then women as I got older. And but the problem is right now, what they would do to a kid like me is they would say, "Oh, maybe he's not really he. Maybe he should do different pronouns, and we'll call you she, her, and we'll do that officially, not in a way, playground talk as kids did when I was little. They would officially change your pronouns and give you a different name, and will put you on the girls' team. Truly, I played on the girls' team a lot, by the way, not because I was competing with the girls, but because I was shitty at sports. I just couldn't. I was bad at sports, so I was one of the better girl players, as it turns out. So, anyway, I say all this because I just imagine what life must be like for these kids now. And, a kid who's just into cross dressing, as I was, would be told that there was something that they were born in the wrong body, or they were a different gender than the one they were born as. And they'll encourage, adults will be encouraging young kids to take on this new identity without really even thinking through what that means for their entire lifetime. You're talking about, when I was, and not only me, but other kids, when you're little, you believe in Santa Claus and you have trouble deciding what your favorite color is. And yet you've got, parents who are running around, and adults, not just the parents, but the adults around them, teachers and so on, who are inflicting this on kids. Oh, the 3-year-old says that he's really a girl, or the 4-year-old says she's really a boy, and so we're going to go along with that. And it's nonsense. From my perspective, if you want to wear what you want to wear, some other gender's clothes, be my guest. That's not past me anymore. I still occasionally, the shorts that I have, I can't find men's shorts. I had that the men's shorts these days are extremely long. For me, I like to wear shorts that are a lot shorter, and I either have to go to a sporting goods store and pay $50 for a pair of shorts, or I go to Ross and find a $10 pair of women's shorts that look just fine on me, and wear those. And so whatever. But the clothes doesn't make you a different gender. That's just cosplay. If you're going and you're going to an event or something like that, you dress up for Halloween. That's cosplay. Today they call that drag, and apparently it's perfectly cool to go present yourself as a female to a bunch of school kids and tell them how gender is fluid, and then the kids absorb that, and they start questioning their identity, and there's story after story after story of kids that they're just confused. They convince their parents to go get hormone replacement or puberty blockers, and sometimes they go as far as having surgeries, and it's irreversible. There's nothing they can do about it. Go look. You'll find out that there's a ton of stories of people who have gone through this. And yeah, Lisa says that she was a girly girl and played with Tonka trucks, and yeah, I mean, I remember there was one time that I told this story about a year ago. I'd actually forgotten about it. That when I was a kid, I had some money. I forget, from not allowance. We didn't have allowances. We did chores and we earned money, or we worked for my parents and earned money. And I earned some money to go to the post office, which doubled as a general store. So it was a post office and general store. And in the general store, they had a little toy section. And I had the choice between like a construction set with some, I don't know, maybe it had farm animals or something like that. Or maybe it was a farm set or something. I don't know. And this little stuffed horse. And I really wanted the stuffed horse, which was quite a bit more feminine than the toys, than the play set. And I went with that because that was just where I was at that point in my life. And that's fine. I mean, I looked for ways opportunities to dress up, and I looked for opportunities to dress up, so people could see me, so that I could appear in my girl persona and be feminine in front of them. And I think that's something also that's happening as well with some of the adults now, is that they have that desire to to present themselves as another gender, so they can fulfill some kind of fantasy that really they're a different gender than what they are, as part of their fantasy fulfillment. So I've actually studied this a lot because I've been very, very fascinated about not just my own experience, but what I'm seeing out there today. And there's no such, maybe there's some people out there who are quote unquote transgender, who for whatever reason are suffering because they can't function. They think they're in the wrong body, but they're not. You're either male or you're female. There's no 150 different genders, and this notion that you're going to be you can just choose is just crazy. And what's more distressing to me about it, and the reason that I want to talk about it, is that it's adults inflicting this stuff on kids. And again, I'll grant you that there are kids who are very confused for a variety of different reasons. And I think that for me, I was uh, confused, and then that confusion was sort of validated by the people around me who would tell me that I'm a girl, and convince me to put their clothes on, and prance around and stuff like that. And I enjoyed the validation. And so, yeah, again, left to its natural course, nothing would happen. You grow out of that. You find other things that interest you. You start to understand why you have that fascination, and you move on. But when you do it to these young people, um, yeah, it's Pink stuck in a Pink Floyd song. Yeah, I know. And by the way, uh, some of the popular media back then, Pink Floyd. What was that movie? Um, the one that they do at Halloween all the time. Help me out here, folks. Rocky Horror Picture Show. Those were all very confusing to me, but I figured it out. Now, kids aren't left to their own devices to figure it out. They're being prodded along by adults. And I suspect maybe they're caring. They want to help kids figure stuff out. But look at all the different ways that adults, well meaning adults, try to help kids, quote unquote, figure it out. Well, they do that by convincing kids that they've got to go to college, or that they shouldn't become mothers, or that they should go into a bunch of college debt, or they should you know you know, I don't know, do all kinds of different things, and it's bad for them because they're not left to their own devices to just choose on their own what their destiny is, what their career path is, what their family plan looks like. Instead, they're told, "Here's your path." And before, it was really disturbing because the worst that could happen, I guess, is that you'll go to college, get a useless degree, have a bunch of debt, and then get a dead end job and have to work a bunch of hours try to pay off that debt. Um, but now, from a very very early time, kids are being, as been mentioned in the chat several times, groomed into being convinced that they're a different gender than they actually are. And I mentioned on Twitter the other day that if mistakes happen in nature, um, they happen far, far less than the left would have you believe. They make it sound as if it's happening all the time. And as a result, I've heard from teachers with 25 kids in the class that 3 or 4 kids in the class are identifying as transgender. They've decided to switch pronouns and change their names, and that's not normal. That really is not normal. And There was an article online a couple days ago, Newsmax, and I know the left hates Newsmax because it's not NPR, but there was an article in Newsmax the other day talking about an entire class of elementary students that decided that they had different genders and different pronouns and different names. So yeah, this is grooming. This is grooming. And maybe it's not meant to be grooming. Maybe it's from people who, mean well and aren't trying to do bad by kids. But I think some of it is bad. I mean, some of it is nefarious. Quite frankly, looking at it now, I think there are some um, educators who are against masculine people. They don't think they don't like what they call it toxic masculinity, but it's not. And so they figure if they can turn a bunch of boys into girls, then that would be perfectly okay. And then there are some who are also interested in reducing populations. So it's god awful difficult if you can't tell if the person you're going to go out with is actually a man or a woman, or they've somehow had alterations done to them along the way. That's just maybe that helps control population in some fashion. I don't know. But it certainly is, whatever the reason, it is definitely a breakdown in society. And it's a huge one at that. And it's the reason, again, why I think if you want to change your name and you want to change your pronouns and you want to have surgeries done on you, you do you, boo boo. I don't care. I don't want to pay for it. And I'm certainly not going to change your pronouns to being something that it's not. As far as I'm concerned, Caitlyn Jenner is still a man. I'll call him Caitlyn if that's what he wants to be known by. But he's a dude. Leah Thomas, if he wants to be called Leah, well, fine, whatever. If Elliot Page wants to be called Elliot Page, she's still a woman. And there's nothing I can do about that. That's not something that I invented. That's just the way it goes. So I'm trying to hang on a second. I'm trying to read Heather's remarks because I can't. Oh yeah, that's a really good point, Heather. I don't know if you guys can read what she's saying here, but oh, there, look, I just made it pop up on the screen. That's cool. Yes, adults are trying to protect their discomfort in attempting to understand the world on their kids, and they do that with labels. Yeah, and I also think it's their way of protecting them from. How do I hide that now? Okay, there we go. Sorry, bad with the technology, and I'm trying to do this on my phone so I can barely see what's happening. But there's a propensity to try to shield people from pain and discomfort. And so you label stuff, and that's how you avoid pain and discomfort. I'm not sure if that's entirely the point that you're making, Heather. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think that's really what's happening. Oh, you identify as this other thing? Okay, here's your label, and away you go. But really, this is a conversation for parents to have with their kids. It's a conversation for immediate family. Thank you, Heather. I did really hard to read this on here, so I'm bungling it a little bit. But you put a label on it, and pat people on the head, and everybody feels really good about themselves, and off you go. But sometimes, and I say this about everything, and in fact, it's sort of my motto in public policy: you have to do hard things. The work that you have to do to save America from a lot of bad shit is really hard. Things like getting people off of welfare and ending those programs and stopping, the government from being involved in every single aspect of our life. All those things are extremely difficult, and it's harder to say. Okay, so I'm going to put Lisa's comment on here so everybody can see. I think maybe. There we go. Just because I like the tool. This is the first time I've done this. I'm not really used to it. But yeah, yes, that's you're right. So you you're in this place where everybody's supposed to be happy and everybody's supposed to be accepting, and there are no questions that are supposed to be asked, and you can't say to a kid, you're not really a boy, you're a girl. The doctor came in, looked at you, that's what you are. But you have to make everybody happy, and we all have to live in everybody else's fantasy world, and then we have to adopt everybody's pronouns. And by the way, for some of these people, their pronouns change every stinking day. It's like, okay, I was he, him, now I'm they, them. And again, the people who are harmed the most are kids, which is the reason why schools should get back to what they're supposed to be doing in the first place, which is talking about reading, writing, and arithmetic. Now you're graduating kids that can't read, can't write, can't do math, and they're woke as hell. They think America is terrible, and there's 150 genders, and everybody's a racist if you're white, and you're really bad if you're white and heterosexual and male. This is what our kids are being sold today. And so, at minimum, I think it's important that our um, public welfare systems, which shouldn't exist, as Tunnel Lord mentioned in the chat, um, we at minimum shouldn't be using those programs to pay for these procedures. Um, and I think that schools shouldn't be the venue for talking about um, gender and talking about sexuality. You're seeing a lot of teachers, and I will say not necessarily in Idaho, but hold that thought. But in other teachers elsewhere who are parading themselves all over Twitter. I saw a video the other day of a teacher who turned their um, classroom into, I don't know, a drag hall. Is that what you called them? I don't even know. Gay bar. I truly have no idea. Disco lights and all that other stuff. And I saw a teacher today who was in full drag talking to elementary school students about it. It's incredible. I don't understand what's going on here. And again, like I said, okay, and yes, here in Idaho, we will have actually, we're launching a website in a couple of weeks where you will be able to see which school districts in Idaho are engaged in wokeism. And those of you who are donors, you will receive a sneak peek. You'll get an invitation to the preview stream where you'll be able to see exactly what we've put together and how this new tool works and how parents can also use it to report incidents of wokeness in their own local school districts. I would tell you that, yes, it is happening in Idaho. Is it happening more than other states? Don't know, don't care. All I know is that it is happening here and it is a problem. And yes, as Anna Miller and Caitlin Shepard from our Center for American Education wrote not long ago, yes, there are gay and sex alliance, I guess they call them, clubs on campuses in many of Idaho's school districts. That's a real problem. So anyway, I want to just share this with you guys because, like I said, from my own personal experience, I know what would have happened. My own confusion would have been validated. It would have been used to prop up my belief that I'm a girl when I'm not. And that's what's happening now. And you have a lot of young kids who are just, experimenting with cross dressing, or they're playing with one gender more than they should, I guess. They should be hanging around with boys because they're a boy, and they're hanging around with the girls, and they're trying on clothes, or playing pretending that they're uh, whatever. And that's okay. That's just normal. But now those things are being used to convince kids that they're an entirely different gender than what they are, and they're validating that, and it's just confusing them, and it's forcing kids into situations that they shouldn't be in. And that's from my own experience. I have studied this extensively. I understand it. I was studying it before it was even considered a thing, and now it's all people talk about. So um, if you're a state policymaker, or you have connections to, or communicate with your elected officials, tell them that this is very bad, and that the Medicaid system shouldn't be used to pay for elective surgeries, let alone what they're calling gender confirmation surgeries, which I think that is such a euphemism. There's no such thing as gender confirmation. Unless you were born a hermaphrodite, and you've got extra parts that you need to get rid of, then you can confirm a gender. But if you're a boy, you're a boy. There's nothing that can change that about you. If you're a girl, you're a girl. Nothing in science can make that different. And the other thing too is, it's sort of deeply disturbing to me that we've allowed to have a subculture created where we tell young people that they're not beautiful for who they already are. That there's something wrong with them if they, um, are a boy and they have some interest in things that girls are doing, and they're beautiful people, and what we've done instead is we've said there's something wrong with them. There's something wrong with you. And we can fix that. We can fix that with a little surgery. We can fix that with some hormones and some puberty blockers. You don't need to worry about that anymore. And that's really, really, really messed up. Psychologically, I think we're doing a tremendous amount of damage to kids. Lisa asked, and I can put it on the screen because I know how to do that now. There you are. Yes, the Supreme Court ruled that it actually wasn't the Idaho Supreme Court. It was a federal court that ruled we have to pay for, uh, I don't know, gender surgeries? What do you call them? There's a better word for it than gender surgeries, but they're surgeries to cut off and reform various genitalia because somebody has that desire. And yes, they did do that. And I'm with Tunnel Lord. I think that he's absolutely right in saying, we have to read the Constitution. We have to protect taxpayers. And I'm tired of this wokeism, the courts that are reading into law. If there's not a law that says they're supposed to pay for it, then there's no law that says you have to pay for it. And they really don't have the power to force the states to do it. But they put on their robes and they get the last word, whether they're right or wrong. And so we just kind of go along with it. I would, if I were the governor, I'd simply refuse to do it. Sue until you're blue in the face. And by the way, the coverage of that issue with the prisoner who wanted the surgery, the media kept reporting very difficult stories to follow because they kept referring to this man as a she. And it said, she tried to castrate herself. And I'm sitting there going, how does that work? He can castrate himself, but it's not some you can't be a woman and castrate yourself. Sorry, it just doesn't work that way. The other thing to be watching out for too is that the Associated Press has a style book, and if you're a journalist, you use the Associated Press style book to guide your writing. So you make sure that, for example, the AP style book says you don't have to say Federal Bureau of Investigation or Central Intelligence Agency. You can just say FBI or CIA. Fine, whatever. But now the style book says that if a person chooses to be a different gender, even if they've had no surgery or they just slap a new pronoun on their bio, then that's what you use. And it is really, really messed up. So, yeah, this is a really, really bad situation. And parents need to be on the alert. As I've said to people before, if you find out, I'm not thrilled with the public schools anyway, so I highly recommend you don't put your kids there. But if you do have kids in the public school system, you damn well better be asking if this is the stuff they're doing, because a lot of school districts, by policy, won't even tell you that it's going on. They won't tell you. We've identified this in the Coeur d'Alene school district. In Coeur d'Alene, there was a girl who told her teachers that she's a boy, and they started using new pronouns and a new name and never told the parents. So it could be happening to your kids. It could be happening to your grandkids. And I just want to get schools back to teaching again instead of trying to redesign the world according to this myth that there's 150 different genders and you can just change them whatever you want. I experienced this. I know what I'm talking about. I would have had an entirely different. Which school was that? Which school district? Tunnel Lord asks. I don't know, but if you go to to our website and click on the Critical Social Justice Report from December, I think it's the very first anecdote on the very first page of the report. and that'll clue you in. But you'll know exactly which school districts are doing a lot of these things where we've found evidence. We haven't found it all because it's very hard to find all of it, but we found a lot of it here in Idaho, more than you know, and it's more than just. Um, they've got a gay and sexual alliance club. It's also transgender bathroom policies. It's there are specific policies that tell teachers how to respond if a kid presents themselves as being a different gender and how, what their interactions should or shouldn't be with their parents. It is very, very scary stuff. So, yep. Uh, uh, this is from my own personal experience. Um, Growing up, a tom girl, a cross dresser, a confused little kid who figured it out. But I wouldn't have gotten there if not for given the space to do that, which is something that kids aren't being given now. They are being groomed and conditioned into believing that a deviation in their um, thinking or their behaviors might make them a different gender than what they are. And it's really, really, really time that we put a stop to that. Don't honor these kinds of requests that people are making, or especially as it pertains to little kids. But we've got to end the charade, especially the charade that's being conducted at public expense. Your tax dollars are being used for this stuff. Like I said, you want to do this on your own dollar and change your name, change your look, your appearance. Have at it. You do you, boo boo. As I said earlier, I have no qualms with that. To each their own. But when you're doing it at public expense, on the public dime, using public resources, this is not what school is for. This is not what the Medicaid system is for. Again, acknowledging that Medicaid shouldn't exist, but it's certainly not what it's for. It's not what the prison system is for. And when you start having classrooms of kids showing up, telling you that they're a different gender, there is something really, really, really wrong. So that's all I got for today. Can't remember what we're going to talk about next Tuesday, but I'm going to join you again, and certainly be sure to tune in to Nowhere to Hide. Brian Hyde's doing a really great job talking and exposing the leftist news media. He'll be back on Friday around this time as well. So thanks again for paying attention. And if you have questions for me or comments after the stream is over, feel free to email me. I'm simple, Wayne at idahofreedom.org. And talk to you another time. Thanks, everybody.